Hey 6th graders, don't forget we always spend the first 15 minutes of class on Moby Max completing a language lesson, so if you have not done that yet, make sure you pause the video and finish that. Yesterday we heard Crown Point by Edna Newrider Weber and began exploring personal narrative. So in class, I am going to write this down on chart paper. But one thing that we learned is that personal narratives tell a true story from the author's life. So that's important for you to remember about personal narratives. We will continue to add to our chart in class as we learn more about what makes personal narratives different from other kinds of writing. If you want to keep these notes in your language arts notebook, that is fine for you to do. I want to start by reviewing our story from yesterday. The last 3 lines say, "My own life began changing, flowing right alongside theirs. I learned it was possible to roll all the laughter and joy I shared with my grandmother into a tiny ball and store it within my soul, where it would be forever safe and always near. Smile, laugh a lot, cry little." In class, we are going to discuss those last 3 lines. We're going to discuss what we think Edna means by "my own life began changing" and what it is that Edna has learned. So some things you might be thinking is that Edna still misses her grandma, but she learned she could remember her and still go on. And she learned to smile and laugh instead of cry. In Crown Point, like in most narratives, the author describes events in which she learns something or changes in some way as a result. We will read another story from Rattlesnake Mesa aloud today. I want you to listen for what Edna has learned or how she changed in this narrative. This mesa, called Rattlesnake, was about a mile northwest from the Indian Agency, behind Boardman's trading post. It wasn't as high as the surrounding mesas. Climbing it was fairly easy. The Navajos believed Rattlesnake Mesa to be home of a giant grandfather rattlesnake and his family. The mesa was split into a thin wedge. In this deep crevice is where the snakes lived, they said. Everyone warned us, "Stay away from that mesa. Don't go climbing there." We were told this again and again. But for Nane, Little Fat, and me, it had a special appeal. We were drawn to it. We could not help ourselves. We'd spend whole days up there. Never did we ever see a rattlesnake or any other kind of snake. The point we climbed was flat and faced west, toward the home of the Thunder Beings. Home of the Thunder Beings it certainly was, majestic, alive, electrifying. Against the horizon here and there we'd see long dark shadows of rain falling, earthward, like tattered spider webs. Slashes of brilliant sunlight shining on red-orange mesas. Zigzag lightning streaking across the skies, too far away to hear their thunder. Small whirlwinds skittering this way and that way, like little cyclones. Mothers-in-law, our people called them. As Nane, Little Fat, and I gazed over the great land, our hearts were so filled with the serenity, beauty, and power of it that often we small children had no conversation. Our eyes gave us memories, a magnificence to last a lifetime. This was our place. It was here that we left our marks forever. Here we scratched into rock our own legend. We inscribed our initials, our whole names. We chipped out our totems. Mine was a flower, 4 petals lifting toward the sun. Nane and Little Fat did animals. Mine was always the same, a flower, 4 petals toward the sun. We had seen pictographs and petroglyphs all over the reservation in special places. This rock art is a natural thing for children to do. It keeps you busy and interested because it's your ideas and your work. You may keep adding, or if you need to change something, you merely erase it. To erase it, you just use a flat rock and go over what you need to remove by rubbing, just like using an eraser. One particular summer day, we had a big brainstorm. We decided to work together on one large petroglyph. We thought a rattlesnake was most appropriate. We quibbled over how long it should be, where we would put it. Nane wanted it to be crawling westward, as if it were crawling off the mesa. Little Fat and I said it should be stretched out, as if it were sleeping in the sun. Now you know, when rattlesnakes sun themselves, they like to stretch straight out. Nane agreed to that. In turn, we said she could mark the length of it. We were thinking 3 feet or so, like most real snakes. But no, Nane started marking and marking. Our snake was to be more than 8 feet long. Too long, Little Fat and I protested loudly. Nane laughed at us, saying, "You said I could mark its length. If we really are going to do this, then we should do some important art. Not just make a worm. Important art. We like that." Nane was right. Thus began many, many trips up Rattlesnake Mesa that summer. We were entirely serious about this project. We went up the mesa each day, like going to a job. Nothing interfered with our work. Packing peanut butter sandwiches each morning, we were off for the day, not returning home until 4 o'clock p.m. Stop work whistle blew down at the engine house. It was then we'd quit whatever we were doing. We'd pick up our tools and hide them in a small crack, covering them with large rocks. We'd scramble back down Rattlesnake Mesa. Each day we went up and made a little progress. We could see it. First, we lightly scratched out a snake's body, exactly as long as Nane wanted, then a triangle head. About 18 inches from the head we began the diamond back pattern, down the long back, 3 inches long and 3 inches wide. 23 diamonds were scratched in. Very slowly a rattlesnake began to take shape. After the preliminary sketching, we began our petroglyph in earnest. We had tools, Little Fat, a broken butcher knife, and big nails. Nane, a long obsidian spearhead with a sharp point. I had a table knife and a fork from my auntie's kitchen. These wonderful gadgets were all we needed. We spoke of the ancient ones. Poor things, we said. No good scratching tools. What all would they have done or drawn if they'd had big nails? As the days went by, our snake became more intricate. We double chiseled the lines on the diamonds. We pecked out scales starting from the head and stopping where the diamonds began. Little Fat was always half lying down as he drew out his work, saying he could put more force into the pattern that way. We scratched deep into the sandstone. This handsome snake will last forever. New people will think it's old, prehistoric. So we pecked even deeper. Yeah. One day Nane's older sister, Biggie, popped over the mesa. We could see what brought her. Curiosity. Biggie had more class than anyone we knew. She was 2 years older than we, considering herself a grown-up already. She lived in books, not in life as we did. The more she read, the older she became. Biggie was very old. We paused in our work on the wonderful snake, big smiles of greetings on our faces. "Who, Biggie?" Someone of importance had arrived to view our art. In expectation, we sat back on our heels, waiting for her approval and admiration of our snake. Biggie slowly circled our snake, looking hard, tossing back her beautiful dark hair, squishing her eyes. She became an art critic. This is ugly. Its belly too big. Did it swallow a deer?" Her voice pitched higher in disgust. Are those ears on its head?" She looked each of us in the eye. "This is how you're wasting your summer? Dilly-dallying, digging in sandstone? You crazies!" She whirled, vanishing off the mesa. We could hear her hollering as she skidded down on the loose rocks. We didn't move. We couldn't. She'd stun us with insults. We were crushed. But not for long. "She's jealous of our snake," whispered Nane. "Ha! She wouldn't even know how to do what we've done, Little Fat. Who cares what she thinks? This is the best snake ever." Me. "Yeah, who cares what she says? This is our own handsome snake. We made it. It's ours. This beautiful snake will tell everybody who sees it that the great-grandfather of all rattlesnakes lives inside this mesa." The snake bonded us closer. After we read this story in class, we are going to discuss 2 questions with our table groups. The first question is, why do you think Edna might have chosen to tell this story? And what does Edna learn, or how does she change as a result of what happens with Biggie? So some things that you might be thinking is that she chose to tell this story because she has a strong memory of it. And she changes, or what she learns from this incident, is that she doesn't care what other people think. And even though Biggie was mean to them, the snake was more important to them. So now we just learned another important element of a personal narrative. So in class, I am going to add that personal narratives describe events in which the author learns or changes. So this will go on our class note on that chart paper. If you want to add this in your language arts notebook to help you remember, that is definitely something that you can do. After we finish adding that note about personal narratives, we are going to discuss in our table groups events where you learned something or changed. This will help get you brainstorming and thinking of memories that you might have that you can use for inspiration for your personal narratives. After we discuss in our table groups, you're going to open up your language arts notebook to your writing ideas section and write a list of events in which you have learned something or changed. After about 5 minutes, I'll stop you, and then you can pick one idea and write about it.